We'll begin our regular Board of Trustees meeting September 24, 2020, 1 o'clock. If y'all will mute your phones or computers, that'd be helpful. Okay, I'm going to start by reading just our opening narrative, just so everybody understands how we're going to conduct this meeting. Governor Abbott has temporarily suspended certain requirements of the Open Meetings Act in response to the COVID-19 public health disaster. Specifically, governmental entities are permitted to meet by telephone or video conference, provided the meetings are audible to members of the public and allow for two-way communication. The suspension of certain requirements of the Open Meetings Act is intended to reduce in-person meetings and the spread of COVID-19 while maintaining government transparency. Today, the NB Board of Trustees meeting will be held by video conference. The board welcomes and encourages the public to participate during the public comment period. Members of the public will be allowed to participate during the public comment period to raise any matters related to NBU that is not on the agenda, as well as discuss any item on the agenda. We ask that all participants state their name and address and limit their comments to no more than 5 minutes. Due to the electronic limitations of this meeting, citizens will only be allowed to make comments during the public comment period of the meeting. For items not posted on the agenda, the NB Board of Trustees may not deliberate any item that is raised by a citizen that is not posted on the agenda. For such an item, NBU may 1, make a statement of fact regarding the item, 2, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, or 3, propose that the item be placed on a future agenda. A recording of the video conference will be made available to the public on NBU's website after this meeting. Okay, that'll carry us to flipping pages here to item A, Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation, led by Mayor Rusty Brockman.
If you'll bow your hearts with me, everyone. Thank you for a wonderful day, dear Lord. We are appreciative of the wonderful rain that you have shared with us, and we are thankful for the opportunities that we have to grow and learn in a community such as ours that is not only working hard for one another, but working hard to keep up with the growth that is going on and all those new friends that are moving to our community that will become part of our New Braunfels family. We're thankful for those that have worked hard over the last month within the NBU organization. We appreciate the efforts and the strength that our team members showed as traveling and helping with others in need around the state of Texas, and we appreciate your encouragement of those kinds of things, because that's what this team is all about. We hope that everyone is doing well. Hope that everyone is that has been affected by, either directly affected by the virus or is currently having the virus, can get well. Keep your healing hands over them. And gracious Heavenly Father, we are appreciative of our first responders, our fire and EMS, our police, our sheriff's deputies. We thank you for them and their standing watch, protecting us every day. And we can't forget that our law enforcement members are extremely important to our community and to our well-being. And thank you for those military men and women who stand guard around the world, protecting us for our freedom so that we can do what we're doing today, praying to you and asking for you to be with us. And we ask that you be with them and be with their families as they await their safe return home. Be with us as we take care of business today, dear Lord. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. If you'll stand up in the pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to do that, okay. Texas pledge, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And real quick, before we move on to the next item, we need to take roll real quick.
Yep.
John Harrell.
Yes, ma'am, present.
Judith Dykes Hoffman. Here. Mayor Rusty Brockman.
Here.
Atanasio Campos,
Here.
Bob Gray,
Here.
Ian Taylor,
Here.
Connie Locke,
Here.
Ryan Kelso,
Here.
Robin Britton,
Here.
Don Shriver,
Here.
David Hubbard,
Here.
Melissa Krause,
Here.
and there is a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, that takes us to item B, public comment. Okay, hearing none, that takes us to item C, recognitions. Number 1, Hurricane Laura mutual aid response.
Okay, I'll take that one. I think most of y'all know what mutual aid is. It's essentially a process by which organizations like ours can pre-negotiate agreements with other utilities like us in times of non-disaster. So when disaster strikes, we already have the agreements put in place, and those utilities can call on others to come in and help when they simply are overwhelmed and can't handle the job themselves. And so that's what happened here. Hurricane Laura was approaching, and we received a call to go help. So Hurricane Laura, y'all will probably remember, made landfall in the early morning hours of Thursday, August 27th, as a powerful Category 4 storm and caused severe damage to distribution and transmission systems in East Texas and Louisiana. The Texas Public Power Association issued a request for mutual aid for its members in East Texas, and MBU answered the call. And we sent a crew consisting of electric operations, and for the first time, we sent fleet mechanics along with them. This was the first time MBU sent a multi-department team into a mutual aid setting, and y'all, the results could not have been any better. The fleet mechanics traveling with the crews proved to be invaluable as they addressed mechanical issues on the spot, not only for MBU, but the other utilities on site as well. Whether it was equipment work, disinfecting a sleep area or the trucks, running fuel to the job site, helping out as a groundsman, prepping poles, or a dozen other tasks that allowed our ops crews the luxury of efficiency. The fleet mechanics stepped up and helped out without hesitation, and I'm told that they were offered jobs by one of the other responding utilities while they were out there. Fortunately, they came home with us, and we still have the pleasure of having them. In total, we provided 9 days of mutual aid to the municipal utilities that serve the cities of Hemphill, Jasper, and Newton. Each of those munis suffered damage to their system as a result of the high winds and downed trees caused by the hurricane. And to give you an idea of the damage, the city of Newton lost 100 poles in a system that only has 1,500 meters. Newton is also the county seat. The courthouse, the city offices, and the only water plant were without power for several days until the repairs were made. And this, for us, this was a bit of a deja vu because MBU provided mutual aid to Hemphill and Jasper 15 years ago after Hurricane Rita came through, if y'all remember that storm. Our crews worked alongside crews from the city of Seguin, Garland Power and Light, and Lubbock Power and Light to restore critical infrastructure and power for those small communities that were faced with long recovery times without this much needed assistance. Some of these utilities, they only have one electric crew for the entire system. And these crews consist of only 3 to 4 people. They've got limited equipment, limited access to contractors and materials. So the resources that we were able to bring were truly a big deal. I think y'all know this. It takes a team effort to successfully provide mutual aid. It takes employees in all departments. That was no different this time. We moved quickly to assemble the necessary paperwork, equipment, supplies, and people to head east. It also takes a commitment from the employees who make the trip, their families who handle things at home while they're gone, and the employees who remain behind to fill in the gaps and continue to provide that excellent service our customers expect. Our first crew returned home after a week, and the second crew was able to finish up the remainder of the work in Newton and return home on September 6th. Helping our fellow utilities and communities in times of need is truly the heart of public power. I think y'all know that. I think that's one of the things that truly makes the work that we do here special. And the towns of Hemphill, Jasper, and Newton have expressed their gratitude multiple times for the professional, capable, and caring teams that we sent their way. And what I'd like to do is read out the names of those employees that traveled to East Texas to help out. And they include Kobe Hink, Keith Marsh, Greg Williams, Ryan Breeding, Mike Hardick, Ethan Zwicky, Cade Bearden, Zach Leprod, Tristan Tips, Nick Woods, Hector Montanez, Jacob Martin, Todd Kelly, Ryan Bogus, John Espinoza, Ryan Jenkins, Austin Klarner, Andre Martinez, Levi Hidalgo, Bradley Dietert, Ty McFarland, and Paul Mata. So if y'all would, please join me in thanking them and everyone else who worked so hard to make this mutual aid response a success. Appreciate them very much.
Okay, thank you, Ian. That's a great report, and as Ian mentioned, and as the mayor did in the opening, that's who we are, and we can't appreciate these people. We couldn't say it enough. We can't appreciate them any more than we do.
Well said. Thank you.
And we have a video that we would like to show as well.
You're going to cue that up right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to get
Okay.
it to.
We had two crews that prepared and left to go provide mutual aid for the city of Smithville at this time. Just wanted to say that we appreciate everybody's kind thoughts, that we're going with them, their prayers for them and their family. It's a very big lift whenever we do something like this. They're asking, well, why are you providing mutual aid to towns outside of this office? And the reason is because we are public power, and there is a whole system of public power utilities throughout the state of Texas. So the city of Smithville is one of those. And we offer mutual aid in times of disaster when we're able to. So we went through a very, very thorough review of our resources, which is not only manpower but equipment, made sure that we were comfortable with sending anybody, and also one of the main points being able to address anything that goes on for our city of Braunfels and our customers. That was a top priority for us. But when you're faced with a disaster that they're going through right now with hurricane recovery, to be able to reach out to your fellow man and those communities, it means so much. That's the heart of public power. Whenever we get something like this together, it's not just, electric office building. This is our entire company, literally, that is preparing for this, from accounting to purchasing. It has to get the supplies, facilities, fleet has to get our equipment and our trucks and everything ready to go. We have to make sure that we have the latest information, whatever it might be. So that's coming from systems control and electric engineering. We have folks at the executive level that are talking to different people, making sure that we're all on the same page. We don't know what City of Smithville or that area has done as far as COVID protection for our folks, but we know we're going to protect ours because they have to come back. And so it was the young mechanic who said, hey, let's take our disinfecting fogging machine. We're going through and they're fogging the trucks and the equipment to make sure they're ready for the next day. We are fogging the area that we're sleeping in. We're taking care of all disinfectant wipes. We're taking every precaution, all the PPE. But it took somebody looking from the outside who has been doing some of this stuff to say, hey, did you think about this? And thank goodness that we've got those kind of conversations. It's something to be proud of, and it's something to that we keep in our mind, because always the heart of public service and the heart of public power is why we do what we
That was great. Thank y'all for that. I'm going to move into item D, items from the chair, and I'll start. And it's kind of, talking more about that mutual aid response. I don't know what it is, but there's nothing cooler to me than going down the highway and seeing a convoy of utility trucks, digger derricks and bucket trucks and service trucks, as far as you can see, going into, not necessarily harm's way, but they're going into a devastated area, going to help people. It's pretty cool. I'll pass it to somebody else. Anybody else have anything?
No, just I would just be repeating what you say. We've had several opportunities to help our communities, and it's been great that we step up to that. Thanks a lot.
Ms. Hoffman, Mr. Gray, anything? I don't see your faces on my screen, so I can't.
I'm here. No, John, Nacho, I agree. There is. It's something's in the water in the utility field. We all help each other. And, we're not staffed at 1,000%. We're staffed for what we can cover in our area, and we all mutually help each other. And from days long ago, and then in old Lake Charles days and Beaumont and Port Arthur, we would have help coming from Florida and all over when we would get hit with floods and hurricanes. So it's good to see. Thank you, John.
Okay, that'll take us on into item E, items from staff. Number 1, CEO's update.
Okay, thank you. I have a few things today. The first I want to talk about is compliance. You know that our water and wastewater systems have been struggling to be in compliance, and they haven't been. But we've had some major breakthroughs this month of September that I couldn't be more excited about, and I want to share them with you. The first is that during the first week of September, we put the new green water reclamation facility online. That was 13 years in the making, y'all. When Ryan sent me the pictures, I kind of just sat there for a minute and had to just let it all soak in for a little while when we diverted flows to that plant, because it was such a long time in the making. You'll probably know that plant's been underwater 3 times, in 98, 02, and 2010. We've been under an administrative order from TCEQ to construct that plant because we were having trouble meeting effluent quality parameters. And we now, with that plant being online, are in compliance with wastewater treatment regulations, and will stay that way by executing our capital plans. That is a big deal. I mean, you want to talk about stewardship. One of the main things we do is keep the rivers clean, because we own and operate the sanitary sewer system, and to be able to have our treatment plants where they need to be is a big deal. We still have work to do for wastewater when it comes to pipelines and lift stations, but all that work's in flight. Y'all know that. You've seen our capital plans, and we're executing those as quickly as we can. We also got great news from TCEQ. This is another thing that Ryan told me that I had to pause for a moment because these things are such a big deal, because so much time and so much work, and it's not just from one group or 2 groups in the company. I mean, it takes the entire organization to make these things happen. But what I was so excited about last week is when we received news from TCEQ that after the negotiations we've had, they have accepted our alternative capacity requirements for the water system. What that means is that we are temporarily back into compliance with production and pumping requirements. And it's because of the extraordinary work our team has done to identify, plan, and construct all these interim projects every single year for the last 3 years to make sure that we don't run out of water every summer. Because if we had not done the ones in the off season each year, we would have that next summer. So there's tremendous amount of dedication that went into making that happen. And y'all know too that to remain in compliance, we got to continue to implement our plans, and we are. We're on track on all these things. When it comes to the water system, we're still out of compliance on elevated storage, but again, we know it and we know what needs to be done, and we're moving forward with that. So just terrifically exciting news on water and wastewater over the last month that I'm very excited to share with you.
And Ian, can I make a comment?
Please do.
I want the mayor to hear this. You know, non-compliance was not a result of not planning for the future. There were several problems. One, we went very strong with conservation, and we experienced a lot of growth. With conservation, what we didn't figure out is that that plant was going to have to take a concentrate that was so much greater than usual. You know, people used to shave, turn on the faucet, and leave the faucet running. We were telling people to do things like turn the water off, conserve. Well, that caused the concentration level to be much different than what was planned for. And so that's part of the problem that we had here. And we had to rush to fall into compliance because of all those changes and what was going on. Thank you.
Everything you said is true, and I'll add to it. I'll tell you that with the growth that we've had, this is one of my talking points when I meet with council and civic organizations. The growth that we've had over the last 9 years has consumed capacity at twice the rate we normally would have. That means that in 10 years, we consume capacity what normally would have taken 20 years. And on water and wastewater, you can only design and build so fast. The electric side is much, much different for distribution. But when it comes to water pipelines and wastewater pipelines and treatment facilities, you can't just build them. It takes years to get these things done, even with accelerated schedules. So the growth that we've had, I think, Dr. Hoffman, you brought up, I thought, a really interesting point at a previous board meeting about when the growth rate at a community reaches a certain number, you cannot build fast enough to keep up. And we were at that number. And it's just just the fact of the matter that when you're growing that fast, you simply can't keep up with water and wastewater. But we have, and we have because our team has come up with these interim solutions and worked with our neighbors every year to put these projects online. We worked internally and squeezed every drop that was in that lemon out by optimizing our pump settings and maintenance on our system and everything else. It's been an incredible effort. All right, let me move on to the next thing here. So each fall we have what we call the road show, for lack of a better word, and the point here is that we want to get out to the community, and for anybody who's willing to listen, we want to talk about MBU and how things are going. We kicked off that road show this month, and so far I've been able to meet with the Downtown Association, the Chamber Board, and New Braunfels Rotary, and the idea is, you know, the community is our owners, and we want to tell our owners how things are going and the state of the utilities, because we got a great story to tell here. Last year we included community forums as well. We had one during the day, one in the evening at the Civic Center. We've had a tremendous campaign on all media channels to communicate the impacts of growth on our infrastructure, just like I was talking about a moment ago, which then drives our capital, which then drives rates. So over the last 3 years, I feel like we've done some pretty good work, and anybody who wants to know knows. What we're seeing right now, and I'll talk more about this later during our action items when we do those presentations. What we're seeing right now is that utility bills are high this summer, and they're always high in the summer. Every utility in the nation has high bills, and people questioning why the bills are so high every summer. I think what's unique this summer is that it's been hotter and drier than it has normally. And so every summer, residential AC and lawn watering truly is what drives bills. We also had a water rate increase that's showing up in bills this summer too. And so while we're continuing with this road show, we're adding to it this year a focus on reaching out individually to customers with high consumption. And I'm talking about a very broad campaign to reach as many people as we can, not 1, 2, or 3. I'm talking about a lot of folks. We've already started this. There has been a lot of talk on social media about high bills, some very ugly stuff, and we've tried to reach out one-on-one with each person that's posted. I will tell you that the most recent one I saw, the customer used 80,000 gallons of water, which is equivalent to roughly 4 residential swimming pools for irrigation in 1 month. This person's electric consumption was 6,000 kilowatt hours, which is 5 times the average residential customer. So the bills are high, primarily because the volumes are high. But what we want to do is we're going to put together a very comprehensive package of tools and information we can put in our customers' hands so that they can manage their utility bills as best as possible. I'll talk more in detail about that when we get the action items. But just wanted to let you know we've kicked off that roadshow again. We're continuing to get the word out, and we're transitioning to a more personalized one-on-one outreach starting in the spring. And then finally, we have a number of interactions with City Council in September and October. So we were there at Council last Monday for 2 reasons. Number one, there were revisions to our wastewater pretreatment ordinance that you approved last month, and it was time to take to Council because it's an ordinance revision. Second reading will be at their next meeting. And then we also requested easements from the city for the North Keeler Intercept project. And so that was on their consent agenda, but since we had already gone to them for the request for eminent domain for some other easements, we went ahead and gave them a brief presentation on the project to give them an update on that request for eminent domain and also the easements and the project schedule. We'll be there on October 5th for our annual workshop with them to give them basically the overview of the company and the state of MBU and a preview of the rate design that we propose that's on the action items portion of this agenda today. And then we'll be there on October 12th and 16th for 2 readings for rates. So a lot coming up with City Council in the next month. And that is the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Ian. That takes us to number 2, financial update and report.
Hey, good afternoon, board. I'm here to present the July financial update. Just wanted to start off saying that these are preliminary financial numbers. We're still processing some year-end entries, including the retirement of the service center, which will have a significant impact on the final numbers. First slide is on the Fitch rating, which Johns can provide an update on.
Okay, good afternoon, board. I wanted to share some good news with you. MBU recently issued refunding bonds primarily to refill their commercial paper funds. In order to accomplish that debt issuance, we had to get ratings from 2 of the 3 rating agencies. So we got ratings from S&P and Moody's. Fitch had rated us on our 2018 issuance as part of their due diligence. They were required to do surveillance in August to uphold the rating. I'm happy to report that not only did they affirm MBU's AA rating, but they revised our outlook from negative to stable. They were impressed with our strong financial management. And in addition, Fitch does a stress analysis to test the ratios and parameters, and they were planning to do that for MBU. Recently, they had been putting in COVID stress factors for other entities that they were reviewing. But after we sat down and went through our financial plan with them and showed them all the adjustments we had made and included for COVID, they didn't see a need to stress our financial plan any further. They were also pleased that MBU had a proven rate setting ability and an outstanding relationship with the City Council. And I want to thank the finance team and others. A lot of people put a lot of work and effort into that response, and we were really happy to get that great news.
Okay, going into the key financial ratios that we report out on a monthly basis. To the far right column are the actuals. Our debt to capitalization was at 32.9%. We're well within our financial policy of 50% or less. Our debt service coverage was at 6.02, which is well within the financial policy of 2.4 or greater. Our days cash on hand is at 171, which is well over 140. Our days liquidity on hand was at 372. This slide shows the days cash on hand, how it's increased throughout the fiscal year. Again, we're at 171 days compared to our budget of 137. Our operating revenues, as we've already stated, we had really high temperatures and very little rainfall during the month of July, which impacted the usage for water and electric. Our revenue came in at 136.9 year to date, which is 24.5 million greater than prior year and 7.7 million greater than budget. Our water was 7.8 million greater than prior year and 3.3 million greater than budget. And our wastewater is at 2.6 million greater than prior year and 300,000 less than budget. Over the last 3 months, we did see a decline in some of the commercial accounts. Our operating revenues by line of business across the board were showing greater than prior year and less than budget. Our combined O&M is 4.9 million greater than prior year and 5.5 million less than budget. Our impact fees, this chart is showing that they've increased over this fiscal year. We have collected 15.6 million year to date compared to 8.1, which was actual compared to last year, and our budget of $10.2 million. This slide shows the change in net position after contributions, which is 21.9 million greater than we had budgeted for. A lot of that impact was the operating revenue, which came at 10.8 million greater than budget. Our operating expenses was 6 million less than budget. Non-operating revenue and expenses was 700,000 favorable than we had budgeted for. And a lot of that also came from our capital contributions, which were 4 million greater than we had budgeted for, with 2 million coming from developer contributions. And this slide is showing our capital expenditures to date. So we still show that we're under budget, but we're still closing out some of those capital projects so that these numbers will change. We do show that we're at 95% expense to date compared to our budget on electric. Our water is 63% expense to our budget to date. And our wastewater is at 59%, and our support services is at 22%. When we compare this to the same time last year with projects, electric was at 99% of the budget, water was at 57% of the budget, wastewater was at 69% of the budget, and support services was at 10% of the budget. And that's the end of the financial update. I'm happy to take any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I want to go back and just say congratulations to everybody who was part of that bond rating process. That is a massive achievement, and even more so during these uncertain times. And I could not be more proud of the outcome of that. And it just speaks volumes about, again, the quality of what we're doing, but more importantly, of the exceptional service that we provide. And just John and Kim and John and the rest of the team, thank you for all your hard work. May it continue.
Can I say thank you for saying that? I mean, this is a big deal that this happened. I mean, this is with everything that's going on to have that kind of outcome. And we're not here to make a profit. We have no profit built into our rates, obviously. It's all about this bond rating. And to have what's so great, I think, about this is you've got this objective third party coming in and looking at everything we do and telling us what they think about it. It's like an auditor, but even better, I think, because it's looking across the organization and seeing what type of company you are. So thank you for saying that. It's a very big deal.
Thank you, Judy. I will certainly echo what you said. I was pleasantly surprised to see the email come across that announcement when we got that a week or so ago. Okay, thank you, Kimberly and Dawn. That takes us to item 3, quarterly investment report. So I guess we get to hear from John today.
Yes, you do, and we have it as a separate item now, so you won't have to have that confusion anymore.
Yeah, now you're jabbing me a bit, aren't you?
No, not at all, not at all. All right, so thank you. So of course, this is a quarterly investment report. This report is as of July 31, 2020, fiscal year end. This slide, as always, I point you to the green highlighted cells where we're looking at the comparison versus our investment policy. So when we look at weighted average maturity in days, the second column from the right, you'll see maximum per the policy is 450 days. We're at 89 days at the end of July. The weighted average days to call, the maximum per policy is 300 days. We were at 17. Once again, we haven't been making long-term investments during this period due to COVID. with the exception of the reserve fund, which was fully funded. We were able to make investments on that, but everything else, we're not really making any long-term investments at this time. And then the liquidity requirement, per the policy, we must keep a minimum of 30 days of total daily liquid funds, and we're at 140 days as of July 31, 2020. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is the rolling 4-quarter annualized yield. You'll see in the middle column is as of July 31, 2020. The right column is the rolling 4-quarter average, and that's for the different investment types that we invest in. What you'll see that stands out blatantly from this slide is that rates are significantly lower than the rolling 4-quarter average. We're in this low interest rate environment. You go on the next slide. So this is showing the investment allocations by type versus the allowable allocation range. This slide is showing that we are within the allowable allocation range for each investment type. So the color on each of the bars shows what the range is, and then that vertical black line shows where we stand in each of those investment types. So we are in compliance with the policy. Next, thank you. This is the U.S. Treasury yield curve as of today. So there's, once again, you can see on this curve how much lower rates are. The green line that is higher is 4 quarters ago. So rates, even though they were low at that time, they're far lower now. The blue line, the light blue line, is 1 quarter ago, which was April 30, 2020. The pinkish line, magenta, whatever that color is, was this quarter in July 31, 2020. And then the darker blue line is with the settlement date of today, 9/24. As you may or may not know, the Fed met on July 16th, September 16th, and made the decision to keep the target Fed funds rate at 0 to 0.25%, and looking at keeping them close to 0 for the foreseeable future, even out to 2023. Next slide, please. All right, so this is commercial paper. This is our quarterly update on the commercial paper program, and it's been going extremely well. If you recall, in May 2020, we issued the Series 2020 bonds, which refunded all of the then outstanding commercial paper notes at that time, and which reopened and allowed us to use that $75 million capacity once again. And so actually on yesterday, we drew down commercial paper in the amount of $15 million, and we got really extremely low rates, 0.22%. It had been in the 1.5 to 2% range for the notes we had issued prior to. And so the commercial paper has been working extremely well for us. Next slide. And that's all I have for you, unless you had any questions.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
And whoever idea it was to break out your section gets a gold star. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4, update on customer accounts.
Okay, good afternoon again. I'm going to give you an update on the customer accounts. I'll be bringing you this monthly until we work our way through these balances. I do want to thank Jason Bates and Carlos Salas. They help me put this together each month, and each month they improve the presentation for me. Next slide, please. So this is an overall look at the balances, and if you remember, we had suspended penalties and disconnections on March 19th. On July 1st, we reinstated our process of disconnecting the past due customers. So you've seen the layout of this slide before. The orange is this fiscal year and shows it by month and then by week for the month of September. And then the blue is last year. And you can see in the upper left corner the number of accounts overdue compared to last year, and that's a 131% increase. And then the amount overdue compared to last year, which is a 256% increase. And then the donuts represent the number of accounts and the balances by times 31 to 60, 61 to 90, etc. Next slide, please. All right, so here's one of the improvements I was talking about. They've broken the data out for me even further this month. So we have residential data separated out from commercial accounts. And if you look down to the bottom right, you can see that when the federal unemployment benefits expired, you can see how those balances started to grow. Because of the heat index, MBU was not able to do any residential disconnects until September. Through September 17th, we've processed 183 residential disconnects, and of those, only 14% remain in disconnected status. Next slide, please. All right, now moving on to commercial. You can see down on the bottom right when we started doing those commercial disconnects, and you can see how those balances started to decrease once we started to do the disconnects. Since July 1st, we've processed 373 disconnects, and of those, only 7% remain in disconnected status. We've been working with all of the customers, commercial and residential, and we currently have over 1,000 accounts with payment plans or extensions in place. We'll continue to work with our customers, and we'll bring you this report until we work through these balances. Are there any questions?
Dawn,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious, Dawn, this sounds like a lot of work. How are you guys able to, how are you managing it? Everybody doing okay, keeping up with this additional activity?
Well, I will say in customer service, the call hold times have increased because working through these calls takes a lot of time. In addition, as Ian pointed out, usage is high this summer, and bills are growing. So, the calls take a lot of time to work through, but they have managed to keep a great attitude, and the customers are very appreciative that we're working with them.
Well, please make sure you pass along, I'm sure others on the board, our thanks for this extra work, because that's just to me, a hallmark of what we do, the caring that we have for our customers. So thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question. Are we seeing a whole lot of elderly customers go into this status?
I don't know if we have the data by age group. I can look into that, and I can bring that next month when I bring the report. That is a good question. I'm not sure about that. We have seen on the commercial side some of the leisure and hospitality accounts. Those are the ones we're really having to work with. But let me look into if we have that data by age group.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don. Is that the end of your report?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, number 5, community broadband and fiber project.
Okay, I have no slides. I just want to give you an update on where this is. For a number of years now, the 4B board and the chamber have had the need or desire for better broadband service as strategic priorities for both of those organizations. MBU was brought into the discussion because we have community-owned infrastructure that could be used to enable such an initiative. Last summer, 4B approved a contract with a consultant to assist with this work. Although the contract has not yet gone to council for approval, that person is ready and eager to get going. In the meantime, we've been doing our due diligence to understand to what degree MBU can and should participate in the project, and this effort has been around 5 areas. That's what I'll give you a quick update on. Number 1, we wanted to understand if there were any statutory limitations on MBU providing dark fiber or poles for use by a private company, in particular the company that is represented by the agreement that is currently before 4B. We've confirmed with outside counsel that the current proposal is not in conflict with statute, so check that box, we're good there. The second is a pole attachment agreement. We are working on a long-term agreement, but in the short term, we've put together an agreement that'll work right now. So there's no hold up there. Check that box, we're ready to go. The third out of the 5 items is one of the big ones. It's what I'll call the fiber risk assessment. And you'll see this in executive session today. It'll be in there because this type of topic is related to security. So we completed this assessment, Robin and her team, and they did an effort that's very similar to what they did for our IT systems. So any corporation that might lease dark fiber needs to be aware of that type of assessment, right? Because that type of risk assessment will dictate what type of reliability expectations this fiber network can provide. And also what we would need to do as an organization is evaluate whether or not we want to lease the dark fiber given the current risks. So that's something that we want to share with you and talk over with you. I'll point out also though that there's an option that an organization come in and work with 4B and not use our dark fiber. That's perfect, and that I believe is on the table right now. So that may be a non-issue, but it's something we want to share with you. The fourth item is the fact that the fiber network that we own and operate is actually shared with NBISD and the City of New Braunfels through an agreement. So I met with the city manager and the superintendent of schools and shared the results of the risk assessment and explained what it would mean to lease that fiber network in light of our agreement, because any lease would need to be considered by all 3 parties since all 3 are involved in that agreement. So we're going to have follow-up meetings to discuss that, to continue discussing. And the fifth, and this is a little easier one, MBU has met with the firm. They're called Frantic. That's their name, and that's the one that's currently being considered by 4B. And we've talked to them about what their proposal would mean as far as what type of poles they would want to use, their fiber routing, that type of thing, just to understand to what degree our existing fiber and our poles and such can meet their expectations. So we've checked that box off. So those are the 5 items. And those are the key items that we're pursuing as part of our due diligence. The 2 outstanding items, of course, are the risk analysis, which we're going to share with you in a moment to get your feedback, and then reaching consensus from the school district and the city, which we're currently, like I said, in the process of doing. And again, I want to point out that it is an option for a company to come in and do this without using dark fiber. So that would really pull MBU out of this in a very big way, and a lot of this would just go away. I do want to make clear that MBU is not leading this project. Sometimes people ask me about it, and the way they ask makes me think that they think that we're leading this, and we're not. This right now is, like I said, it's been a strategic priority of 4B in the chamber, and MBU as a community-owned utility has assets that we can be there and offer to help advance this, but we're not leading it. So our role right now is just to do this due diligence, which is where we are. And I wanted to share with you an update on that, and we'll talk more in executive session. But if you have any questions about any of that, I'd be glad to answer them for you right now. I'll say too, I think that one of the outcomes of COVID is we all recognize the importance of community broadband. We're all feeling it. The school districts are feeling it in a big way. Every one of us is. So it's a big deal, and it's certainly something that we need to tackle in the community. That's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Ian. All right, that takes us to item F, consent items for action. We've got one item, item 5, that we're going to pull it. It's going to be moved to another budget year, so that's the reason for that. So I will skip over item 5. Okay, number 1, approved minutes of the MBU regular board meeting of August 27, 2020. Number 2, approved 2020 first quarter charge-off accounts. Number 3, approved the change order log from July 15, 2020 through August 15, 2020. Number 4, approved the reports of water and electric engineering contracts from August 1, 2019 through July 31st, 2020. Number 6, authorized CEO to negotiate and execute a construction contract with Santa Clara Construction Limited for the construction of the North Keeler 42-inch interceptor upgrade project. Number 7, authorized CEO to negotiate and execute a construction contract agreement with BRH Garver Construction LP for the construction of the North Keeler 30-inch and 33-inch interceptor upgrade project phase 1. Number 8, authorized CEO to negotiate and execute a construction contract agreement with Visato Construction Company for the construction of the North Keeler 30-inch and 33-inch interceptor upgrade project phase 2. Authorize CEO to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Freeze and Nichols, Inc. for the Goodman Lane Elevated Storage Tank Project. Number 10, approve an additional $200,000 in construction contract contingency with Capital Excavation on the Morningside Psalms Reckley Construction Project. Number 11, authorize CEO to negotiate and execute a services and goods agreement with 5-Star Electric Motors, Inc. for variable frequency drive and soft starter maintenance and replacement services. Number 12, authorize CEO to negotiate and execute a services and goods agreement with Austin Armature Works, LP for variable frequency drive and soft starter maintenance and replacement services. Finally, 13, authorize CEO to negotiate and execute a services and goods agreement with MGC Contractors, Inc. for lift station wet well debris removal services. I'll entertain a motion and a second, and then we'll ask Laura to take roll.
Hey, John, it's Bob Gray. I make the motion. We approved all as read.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a first and a second. Laura, will you please take roll?
John Harrell,
Aye, agree.
Judith Dykes Hoffman,
Agree, aye.
Mayor Rusty Brockman,
Agree. Aye.
Atanasio Campos,
I agree.
Bob Gray.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Okay, item G, action items. Number 1, discuss, consider adopting resolution number 2020-140 by the Board of Trustees of New Braunfels Utilities approving amendments to Chapter 130, Article 4, Section 130-167 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of New Braunfels. 1, adjusting water rates and charges for fiscal year 2021. 2, providing for upgrade adjustments for water rates and charges for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. And 3, authorizing presentation of same to the City Council of New Braunfels for its consideration and passage.
Mr. Harrell, I'm gonna give a presentation, and it's gonna cover action items 1, 2, and 3. So I don't know if you want to read all 3 right now, or if you want to just read the first one, do the presentation, and then read the next 2 individually. Do you have a preference?
I do not. Do any other board members have a preference?
What would be Connie's recommendation?
I would go ahead and read all 3.
Okay. Okay, stand by. All right, number 2, discuss, consider adopting resolution number 2020-141 by the Board of Trustees of New Braunfels Utilities approving amendments to Chapter 130, Article 5, Section 130-257 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of New Braunfels. 1, adjusting sewer rates and charges for fiscal year 2021. 2, providing for upgrade adjustments of sewer rates and charges for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. And 3, authorizing presentation of same to the City Council of New Braunfels for its consideration and passage. Number 3, discuss, consider adopting resolution number 2020-142 by the Board of Trustees of New Braunfels Utilities. 1, approving amendments to Chapter 130, Article 3, Section 130-56 and 130-57 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of New Braunfels that provide for the upward adjustments of electric rates and charges for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. And 2, authorizing presentation of same to the City Council of New Braunfels for its consideration and passage.
Okay, thank you for reading all that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these slides, and before I get into them, just to add a little more detail to what I was talking about earlier during CEO's update, we are shifting our focus from, we're going to continue doing the community interaction to explain the state of MBU and what's going on with rates and the overall business. But what we're going to roll out in March is something that we've already kicked off over the winter and the off season. We're going to put together a comprehensive program to provide information and tools to customers to manage their bills. So yes, the rates are going up, but the volumes we're seeing were very, very high. No matter what the rates were, the bills would have been very high for many of these customers. So some of the examples of things we're gonna offer, there's gonna be many. One of them would be helping our customers program triggers. We have these smart meters, so they can program triggers. They're notified when they reach a particular volume whether it be electric or water consumption, to help them manage their bill. We can assist them in programming their irrigation timer. We'll go out and do it for them to make sure they stay under a particular volume so they can stay under a certain dollar amount. I mean, that's really straightforward. You can pretty much guess or predict what your essential water use only will be for the month. The rest of it is discretionary to irrigation. That's very easy to program a timer and keep under a certain dollar amount. We'll do that for them. We're gonna set some level of consumption where we try to try to reach as many customers as we can prior to the summer season, not just 5 or 6 or 10 or 50. We're going to try to reach as many as we can individually to offer help and assistance in managing their bills, because that's where we are. It's time to proactively contact people before they're surprised by their bill. Like I said, utility bills are always high in the summer because of residential AC and lawn watering. So it's not uncommon. In fact, it's common to have utility bill complaints, but with rate increases, we really want to get out ahead of that to provide the tools and information people need. Okay, next slide, please. Speaking of broadband, how about that delay? Okay, so this presentation will be very similar to last month with 2 changes. Number 1, we dialed in the numbers for the water and sewer rates based on your feedback from the last meeting. And number 2, we added electric rates. I emailed you all between last meeting and this meeting to share with you that was our plan. The idea being, let's take, if the idea is to communicate to the rating agencies that we're going to pursue a 3-year plan to have that revenue assurance, it would only make sense to include all 3 lines of business. And the electric adjustments are very small, so it doesn't make a big impact on the overall plan that we have here. So I've added that as well. Next slide, please. Okay, we can skip over that. We've talked about 2020 several times, so we'll just go on to 2021. So we'll talk about water first. Again, very important to us is this essential use only water customer. We want to protect that person who's not using water for discretionary purposes. It's for life. We want to get MBU back to regulatory compliance. We want to keep utility bills low by protecting our bond rating. We're introducing this discount program for low-income customers. We're pursuing a 3-year rate plan to have revenue assurance. And then, of course, the very important Fitch rating criteria for affordability and cost recovery is something we want to meet at the highest level. Next, please. Next, please. This will be our first year to introduce a low-income discount program. Well, of course, we'll have eligibility requirements for people to enter into the program. We want to step into it. We can make this as complicated as we want to, but we're going to start very simple in the first year and allow it to grow as we learn about how it works and how it works best. And we need to get the word out. We need to get the word out and let our customers who need this kind of thing know about it. Next, please. In the first year, it'll be very simple. It'll be a flat rate discount, $3 off the monthly customer charge. And we estimate that there's about 10% of our water customers that would be eligible. So the maximum cost to MBU would be $165,000. It's important to remember that that's in addition to our utility bill assistance program, which is at $243,000 budgeted for the year. Next, please. Okay, let's get into the rates. So here are there's a 3-year rate plan that we put together. And there's always a risk of doing a multi-year plan, especially in the environment we're in, because there's so much uncertainty with COVID and the economy. We're already seeing construction bids come in higher than estimated because of the uncertainty. Everybody, if there's risk in the environment, things cost more because people want to cover the risk. So that's a risk that we face. There are other items in the budget, such as the GLO, that if that doesn't happen, there's revenue that is in that agreement that if that doesn't show up, that's a risk also. So we did our best forecasting, considering all the different variables and what we were facing, and these are the numbers that we came up with. A base rate increase of 7, then 8, then 8 over the 3 years for the base rate. Then the water supply fee, so there's 2 components, right? There's the base rate and the water supply fee. Y'all will recall the water supply fee is for new supplies that we acquire, and it's also a net. So if we execute contracts to lease water to others, that lease revenue will show up as a credit in this water supply fee. There's 2 changes we're doing. Number 1, we're pulling it out of the first volume block for residential, meaning the essential use only customers will not be charged the water supply fee. So they're going to see their bill go down in the first year. And as you see here on the slide, this is what the fee will be in the next 3 years. It'll be $1.05, then it'll jump to $2.49, and then a very small increase for the next year to $2.79, and that's per 1,000 gallons. Next, please. So here's what that looks like just in a table form. Residential block 1, that's up to 7,500 gallons. And then there'll be no water supply fee. And again, there's what it'll be for the other blocks and the base rate increase for those 3 years. Next, please. Please stop me. I'm going through this fast because you've seen it before, but I want you to stop me if you have questions. What you see here is what all those lines are telling you is based on the base rate change and the water supply fee revenue at the bottom line, and you put that additional revenue in compared to the revenue that's needed. Over the course of those 3 years, it shows a surplus of $3 million. That's not a whole lot considering our capital program is over $500 million. So it's not a whole lot of contingency that we put in, but at the same time, we really want to level out these rate increases and not go for any more than we absolutely need to. We'll document all these assumptions. We'll share them with council. So if something extraordinary happens over the next 3 years and we need to go back to council, and I absolutely hope we don't have to. I don't want to do it right now, as a matter of fact. We'll at least be able to show what those assumptions were.
Ian,
Next
I
slide,
have a
please.
question.
Yes, sir.
If we are in the business of selling water, how does that affect this design? Or does it?
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, if we have, I think we have about 14, 15,000 acre feet of usage for our customers, and we have more than we need that we can sell to other communities. And if we do that, how will that affect this rate design?
Oh, I see. If we bring in revenue from leasing water to others?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be, yeah, there's two sides to this analysis. One is, let's say costs go up, construction costs go up, GLO doesn't materialize, but the other side of that is if we have water leases, what kind of revenue comes in from there? So it's trying to balance those two things. So if the expense side stays the same and we end up with a surplus of 3 million, but the revenue comes in higher than we expect, then it'll grow. So it just depends on how it all turns out. We were ready to go with these water leases right when COVID hit. And it's one of those things that we've had to push pause on because COVID has taken such a drain on resources. But it's something that we want to pick up and get moving again because there is a revenue stream that we can realize.
And is that something that we're also emphasizing to the city when we talk to them?
You bet, we certainly will. Absolutely, it's a very good.
And Mr. Campos, I will say that water supply fee, that will be a net. So if we do some water sales, it will net out on that water supply fee, and that water supply fee will actually decrease.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question, thanks. Okay, if you'll remember from last time, there's going to be several slides. I think 6 up next, and it's easy to get confused. What am I looking at, Ian? You're talking so fast. Let me tell you what they are before I start rolling through them. You're going to see fiscal year 21 off peak, fiscal year 21 on peak. And we'll go through the next 2 years, 22 on, 22 off, 23 on, off and on. So this is next year, fiscal year 2021. That's actually the year we're in right now. So if these take effect, they'll take effect in November. Off peak, so those months outside of the peak months, you'll see that 3,000 gallons, there's not a lot of people who use 3,000 gallons or less. It goes up by almost a quarter, 24 cents. It's really 4,600 to 6,000 is what most people use. And they'll see a decrease in their water bill. Then you get up to 10,000, 15,000, and 25,000 gallons, which isn't anywhere near 80,000 gallons, which is what we're seeing through some of these bills this month. That really gets up into the discretionary use. But at 25,000 gallons, which is used to be a pretty average irrigation number, but we're going to need to do some full analysis to see if this summer really changed what the averages were. But it'd be $18 more off peak. And really not watering the lawn much during those off months anyway. Next slide, please. Okay, on peak. There's the numbers right there. again, it drops for the essential use customer, and at 25,000 gallons, it goes up by $18. Next. Okay, fiscal year 22, off-peak, non-summertime, you start seeing that essential use go up. $1.49, $1.70, $1.88, just under $2 for those folks. And you'll see here in the slides coming up what that means to the overall bill and how it compares to our peers in the region. Next slide, please. So let's look at that year 22 on peak. So that 25,000 gallons is $35 more. And again, it's the irrigation volumes that are driving the investments in water supply and driving the investments in water infrastructure. And because of that, that's where we're putting the costs. That's how you design a rate, is to put the costs on the users that are driving the need. Next, please. Okay, fiscal year 23 off peak. Again, this is a focus on the essential use customer to around $2. Next slide, please. And then on peak for 23. You can see that the increase is smaller for on peak for the higher volumes from 22 to 23 because the increase in the water supply fee is a smaller increase from 22 to 23 than it is from 21 to 22. So we're looking at about a $16 change in 23. That's okay, yeah, please go ahead. Just say, Ian, would you talk faster? We're tired of that slide. All right, here's what the 6,000 gallons residential water bill. 6,000 gallons is essential use. There's not many people are irrigating. If they are, it's not a whole lot. So if you look at the different colors there, the current rate is kind of the pinkish color, and you can see that in fiscal year 21, off-peak and on-peak actually is less, like I was showing the tables before. And if those customers take advantage of the low-income program, it'll make it even smaller. Next, please. Okay, you're not going to see low-income program on this one because we're getting into discretionary use here. Now we're getting into irrigation. This is low to medium lawn watering right here. And you can see that while it's going up, I'm sorry, can you go back one slide? I want to point something out. I think this is real important. If you look below the MBU numbers, look for Austin Water Utility and San Antonio Water System. What I've been telling people is these folks have seen this movie and they know how it ends, right? They've been on this road that we're on right now. And so you can see that for essential use, they do what we're doing. They're staying very low because they recognize these are essential use customers. Next slide, please. Look where they go. They're at the very highest. They've been through this. They've gone through this before where they've had growth, they've had a need to buy water supply, they've had a need to build infrastructure, and they've designed their rates so that they're collecting revenue from those that are driving the investments. But even still, MBUs are very low when it comes to our peers. Next, please. 40,000 gallons, this is 2 residential swimming pools per month that somebody would be putting on their lawn. So even at that volume, we're still below average. And if you look at San Antonio and Austin, it's, again, if you look at the dollar amount between those two, it's very, very high. So we're much lower than where they are. Next, please. All right, let's get into commercial. So there is no average on commercial. It depends on the business. I think 5,000 gallons is about 55% of all commercial accounts. They're the very lowest. Next, please. $30,000 gallons, I think this is roughly 33% or so of all commercial accounts, still very low. Next, please. 50,000 gallons, there's not a whole lot above 50,000 or more, but you can see where we rank there. If you look at Austin and San Antonio on these two, I mean, there's a recognition too that these folks are not irrigating. It's putting dollars into the community. These are commercial businesses. And so you won't see Austin and San Antonio way up high on these commercial accounts because they recognize that. It's not discretionary, it's for business to bring dollars into the community. Next, please. 200,000, very low. Next, please. 500,000, it's a lot of water, still below average. Next, please. Okay, let's talk about sewer and then we'll go into electric. Next, please. Okay. Sewer rate design, it's a lot more straightforward than water because we calculate the volumes based on the lowest 3 months. So irrigation volumes don't count into this. So you can see the increases there. And also the other thing with sewer is that once you'll see here in a moment, when you look at a utility bill, for people who use high volumes, the sewer is just insignificant compared to the others. So you can see these increases that we have, 16.5, then 13, then 13. Then we've updated these fees for what we call chemical oxygen demand and total suspended solids. That is basically a measure of the strength of the commercial sewage being discharged into our system. And we're able to apply a fee to that because it's the strength of the wastewater that determines the cost to treat that wastewater. And so the sewer bill is proportionate to the demand that their sewer is putting on our system. Next, please. Okay, this is residential, purely residential. So you can see that I believe residential average sewer is around 4,600 gallons, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see that. Thank you, Don. See you nod your head. So that you can see for a typical residential customer, it'll be $6 in year 21. There is no on and off peak, obviously, because these are just the lowest months. Next, please. Then nearly $6 for the average customer in 22. Next, please. And then $6.59 in the year 2023. Okay, next slide, please. And here you see the comparisons. You can see that in 21, we are not the lowest, and we're above average. And it's a statement about the unique needs that our community has for the sewer system. You'll recall also that most of these water and wastewater utilities are having to raise their rates every year. They have done it and they continue to do it because it's just the nature of water and wastewater in the place that we live right now in the region of Texas that's growing the way it is. You've got to continue to construct this infrastructure. Next, please. All right, we'll look at electric and then we'll look at a combined bill. So electric is, electric bill has a lot more moving parts. So let's talk about what they are real quick. Over there on the right, that orange bar is the total bill amount. Over on the left, those blue bars are the components that make up that total orange. There's the generation piece, the transmission piece, which is a direct pass-through, right? There's no markup on that. So basically what we're doing there with that power supply program is a community service. That's what we're doing there. And the transmission is postage rate. That's set statewide based on the system that's being served. The PCRF, y'all are familiar with that too. That goes along with generation. And then it's just the delivery and customer charge where we're applying a rate increase. It's the small components there. Next slide. Here's the plan. What we want to do is, again, go for a 3-year plan. So everything's incorporated together as one package for all 3 lines of business. Again, it's only the distribution component, which is delivery and customer charges. There is no increase in the first year. And then in 22 and 23, there's a 5 and 10%. But because it's only the distribution charge, if you look at the entire electric bill, that translates into, again, nothing in fiscal year 21, 1.3% in 22, and 2.6% in 23. Next, please. So we're going to show you some numbers here in a minute, but here are the assumptions for these numbers. It's based on an average residential usage of 1,200 kilowatt hours. Generation is based on a weighted average of 4 cents per kilowatt hour for 8 months and then 5 cents per kilowatt hour for the 4 months over the course of the year. And then generation, transmission, and PCRF are held constant. So let's look at how that turns out. Okay, the total bill is on the bottom. Again, this one's pretty boring because there's no rate increase. It should look boring for fiscal year 21. But before we flip the slide, just go through each one of these. Those components I was sharing with you at the outset, they're all listed there in that column on the left. Next slide. Okay, so the 2 components that are increasing are delivery and the customer charge. And you can see that by going up 5% on each of those, it's 1.3% on the overall bill, which is $1.50 for an average residential. Next, please. In 23, the 10% translates into 2.6 overall, and the dollar amount is $3 roughly for average residential. Next, please. And this is how we compare to our peers in the area. Again, one of the lower bills. Next, please. Okay, let's look at the total bill impact. Next. So this is a customer that is using average electricity They're using only essential use water, 6,000 gallons, and average sewer. And what we have on here is MBU's current on-peak and off-peak, our low-income on-peak and off-peak, and our on-peak as well. So you can see that San Marcos is the only one coming in lower than us, and the others are higher than where we are. It really shows up in the next slide, though. Next slide, please. What we're doing here on this next one is we're increasing the water gallons. So now we're getting into some pretty average irrigation. This is where you see it really show up. You can see that water is dominating the overall bill. And again, if you look at the bottom two, San Antonio and Austin, these are two utilities who experienced already what we're going through right now with the growth and the investments needed to keep up with growth. And you can see right here what their rate strategy has yielded. That they've had to put the cost in those locations where the cost is being driven. Next, please. It's even more pronounced at 40,000 gallons. You can see that at 40,000 gallons, I think this is an important thing to point out. If you look at a utility bill in New Braunfels on peak in fiscal year 21 with the rate increases, at 40,000 gallons, that's 2 swimming pools in 1 month on your yard. You pay $479 in New Braunfels. You pay $624 in San Antonio and $670 in Austin. So I think what we're seeing in New Braunfels is a tremendous discount. Yeah, it's higher, but it's much lower than it could be in other utilities, other places. Next, please. Okay, next. So this is important to us. We've talked about this before. This is the Fitch bond rating attributes. This is measuring two things. It's measuring to what degree our utilities, our water sewer utilities are affordable, while at the same time to what degree we are covering our costs, which those are two things you've got to keep in balance, and we're meeting the strongest rating on this one. Next, please. So let's summarize this. Next. Okay, very quickly. I've said this all before, just to repeat. We're going to protect the essential use only water customer. That's what we're intending to do here. We're going to put a discount program in place for low income. The Fitch rating criteria are met at the highest level. We're allocating costs to those that are driving the cost, which is essentially irrigation. We need the revenue to get MBU back into regulatory compliance. We need to maintain our bond rating to keep utility bills low. We've got a 3-year rate plan. You can see the numbers right there. And with these increases, we're still among the very lowest in our region. Next, please. So here are the next steps. I think one more. Did something else show up, or is that it? No, that might be it. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. It's the council presentation. It's got the fun stuff on the right. Okay, so that top line is where we are today. So we gave you, we've gone through the whole budget process last spring, which ended in June. We did the rate design. We gave you the preview in August. We made the adjustments, and here we are in September presenting to you for your consideration today. If you're agreeable to it, what we'll do next is I have meetings scheduled with new city council members, the 2 new ones. Mayor, I'm with you right now, but if you'd like a one-on-one, I'll be glad to visit with you. I've got meeting with the new council members one-on-one to get them up to speed on some of this that they haven't seen before. And then October 5th, we have our annual workshop with city council to go through our financial operating plan and these rates that I just presented now. Then what we have planned and scheduled is to go to council in October for 2 readings, because as you know, rate increases are an ordinance revision. And then if all is approved, then you can see the effective date of the rate increases. For 21, it will be November 1st. For fiscal year 22 and 23, it'll be August 1st. That's important because the sooner you get in the fiscal year, the lower the rate increase needs to be. So by doing 3 years, we'll have that opportunity to level out the rates. Next, please. Oh, I think that's the last one. I'm sorry, we've already seen the next one. Do you all have any questions or comments or direction based on that?
Very good. That puts it all in a nutshell.
I don't have any questions. Great presentation. And I know you talked earlier about communicating with customers and outreach. That's the only thing that concerns me on it being October. If the approvals go forward, then we're looking at November. I think if we feel like we're not communicating or over communicating, we're probably not communicating enough. So that's my only concern, is that we just don't get the word out to the level that we need to. And I know we will. I guess I just want to say that just communicate before November 1.
Thank you for that. You know, what we'll do is we'll make a point of bringing to you where we are with that as we move along and hit key milestones, so you can see what the program's looking like. Very important.
And you know, you might even, I know it's might be too quick, but even building into like next steps, maybe adding to the timeline some of the major communication pieces in there as well, because I'm sure council will be thinking along the same lines, because just as we are reading some of the comments, I'm sure they're hearing from those individuals about the comments, and you know, being proactive than reactive is always the way to go.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you. We're gonna include. We'll do that. We'll add those dates to the next steps. We're gonna include also in the presentation to council the results of the analysis we're doing right now of over the course of the summer months. How did the usage break down by total volume, right? Like how many residential customers were using 10,000 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or that type of thing. Same thing with kilowatt hours, same thing with dollars, to really get a good look at what are the total customers that are affected by this. What we also want to do too is we're reaching out to people who comment on Facebook and say, hey, look, what can we do? How can we help? And so we're real interested in seeing where those customers fall on this distribution as well. You know, are they truly on the very high end, or are they on the lower end? If they're on the lower end, that's a different situation, right? And we may need to apply different tools and different assistance there. So yeah, great points.
Hey, Ian, with respect to the communication, how are y'all able to, I know you talked about the road show and so forth. How are you able to get out to some of these organizations with all the social distancing and restrictions put on, you know, regular meetings and so forth?
That's been top of mind for me. So when we kicked off the road show this year, I was pretty committed to only doing video meetings. And so the first two I did that way. But then we started getting the calls and the social media posts about high bills, and I decided if they're meeting in person, I'm going in person. We've got to get out. Just like Judy said, we've got to get out and talk and tell the story. So for the last meeting, which was yesterday, I went in person to the New Braunfels Rotary Club. Next one coming up is the Noon Lions Club. They'll also be in person at KC Hall. So it's a little mix of both. We'll go into a big group like that, but
Hey, Bob, can you turn your audio off, please, sir? Ian, you there?
Yeah, it's off. Yeah, it was off.
Okay, I kept seeing it pop up. Sound like somebody was beating a dog or something. Ian, are you still there?
I'm still here, yeah.
Okay. The other question I had, Melissa, what can we do as far as statement stuffers? Do we have the time to do that? Is that something we should pursue or not pursue? Is there value to that? Do people, I mean, everybody has their own opinion as to how much they pick that up and read it or not read it. What's your thought on that?
It is certainly an avenue to communicate. What we typically hear when we've conducted focus group studies is that people really don't pay attention to what's inside their bill. We have also tried new strategies like including messaging on the outside of the back of the envelope, but I think that's kind of to the tune of what Ian was just saying. We'll have a whole variety of tactics we can deploy just to try to communicate at all kinds of various levels. We even have some customers that are paperless, so we can do special messaging on their e-bill. IVR messages, text messages. I think this is a great opportunity to just explore every tactic we can pull out of the toolbox.
I can, some of the comments I've seen in response to the angry comments on social media, I've seen several times where somebody will take a picture of some advertisement we had somewhere and they'll post it as a comment saying, "Hey, have you not seen the tiered rates?" So it's just like Melissa's saying. I mean, in this day and age, you've got to reach out through every single channel, and now we're at the point where we're just going to have to go reach out personally to each person that may end up with a high bill and talk to them about it and talk to them what it may look like. Because, like I said before, the people who want to know, they know. The people who want to be informed, they're informed. It's everybody else who is getting surprised by a bill that we need to reach next.
May I add just, I'm sorry.
Cool. No.
Just going to say, for a particular group that is quite vocal right now on social media, we were invited to offer ways for those homeowners to communicate with us. And because we were invited, that is why we're taking the opportunity to reach out to them if the theme is a really valid concern and we feel like we can help them. So if you all are aware of other neighborhoods where we should be approached by an administrator or reach out to an administrator of those Facebook pages and asking us to be invited, like for example, Moms of New Braunfels, we're not really invited to offer commentary there, but we do monitor those channels, just like Dads of New Braunfels. And if we pick up a theme, we will create some type of campaign on our own social media channels. So if we've been invited to somebody's page or if it's on our page, those are the instances where we're reaching out to talk to those customers, because I think we have to be really careful in that we're not stalking our customers as well.
Yeah, and I guess, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Facebook is just not a place for rational discourse about a utility bill, and you just can't go back and forth with comments with somebody. And not only that, it's confidential information, so you can't share that kind of stuff. And of course, you don't want to get into an argument on Facebook. So it's like Melissa said, really, we're there to monitor, and absolutely there are themes that we hear. Well, just the fact that it's happening was something that we picked up on and realized we have got to mobilize around this concept of reaching out individually to people. So the very fact that it's happening has changed our strategy for communication. Anyway, so Facebook is just very difficult because, it's hard to have a helpful conversation, and that's why we try to take it offline and really give them some tools and information that can help, because we want to help. I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? I mean, we just provide a mutual aid. That's the kind of organization we are. That's what we want to do for water customers as well.
No, I think your point's exactly right, because what I don't want anybody to feel, of course, the frustration is going to exist on our side because you can't reach all the people that you want to, and you can't reach them as quickly and as effectively as you want to. But don't be discouraged by it, because in these social forums, social media, I mean, too often it's a bully environment. It's contagious, and the negative stuff you see, it just builds on itself. So y'all are doing everything we can do, and just don't be frustrated and don't be discouraged by it. Just keep doing what you're doing. There's nothing else, frankly, I see we can do.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate it.
Okay, we've got 3 action items, 1, 2, and 3. We've heard the presentation by Ian. Does anybody have any questions before we entertain a motion? Any more comments, questions? If not, I will entertain a motion, and then we'll have Laura take roll call for a vote.
Are we going to do all 3 at once?
Yes, all 3 at once.
We have to do them separately.
Yes.
Because there are 3 separate resolutions, guys, on this, and the presentation related to everything, and that's why my recommendation was like that, but each resolution is separate as to water, sewer, and electric.
Okay, so your recommendation is us to take 3 separate votes?
Yes, please.
Okay, there was some over noise on that. I didn't hear that. Okay, so we're taking item 1, action item number 1. At this point, I will entertain a motion.
John, it's Bob Gray. I make a motion we approve action item number 1 as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I've got a first and a second. Laura, will you please take roll?
John Harrell,
I approve.
Judith Dykes Hoffman,
Aye.
Mayor Rusty Brockman,
Approved.
Atanasio Campos,
I approve.
Bob Gray.
Approve.
Unanimous approval.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Laura. Okay, we're taking item number 2. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve action item number 2 as read and presented.
And I
I'll
will
second.
second.
Okay, I've got a first and a second on action item number 2. Laura, will you please take roll call?
John Harrell,
I approve.
Judith Dykes Hoffman,
Aye.
Mayor Rusty Brockman,
Approved.
Atanasio Campos,
I approve.
Bob Gray.
Approve.
Unanimous approval.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you all. Okay, last item, action item number 3. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve item 3.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion from Mr. Campos and a second from Mayor Brockman. Laura, will you please take roll?
John Harrell,
Yes, ma'am. Approved.
Judith Dykes Hoffman,
Aye.
Mayor Rusty Brockman,
Approved.
Atanasio Campos,
I approve.
Bob Gray.
Approve.
Unanimous approval.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you all. That's a lot of work, a lot of good work, and it's going to serve us well in the future. Thank you all for the presentation and the information that y'all put together today.
Good job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, that takes us to item H, executive session. The Board of Trustees may recess an executive session for any purpose permitted by the Texas Open Meetings Act, including but not limited to, number 1, power supply resources, competitive matters, section 551.086 Texas Government Code. Number 2, security devices and security audits, section 551.089 Texas Government Code. A, discussion regarding security assessments and deployments relating to information resources technology, certain network security information, or the deployment and or implementation of critical infrastructure or security devices. Number 3, consultation with the attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation and other matters protected by attorney-client privilege, personal matters, section 551.071 Texas Government Code, section 551.074 Texas Government Code. A, deliberate plan and strategy for implementation of executive agreement for chief executive officer. The Board of Trustees, upon reconvening in open session, will discuss and consider any action if necessary regarding closed session items. I have got, let's see, 2:35. Y'all want to take a 5 or 10 minute break and jump back on the executive session call in? Will y'all prefer 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
I'd like 10 minutes.
Okay, I don't even need to take a second on that. We'll say we'll jump back on in 10 minutes to get on the executive side of this thing. Thanks.